Welcome to another episode of Bitcoining. I'm your host, Fong Chua, and with me, of course, is Sheen and Chen, and we're here to talk about everything crypto, Bitcoin, investing, real estate, all that great stuff. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you two?
Excellent. Hey,
Doing good,
Fong.
Fong.
Awesome. So, what's up with Bitcoin right now?
Oh man, where to start? So I guess last time we talked was about 2 weeks ago. Since then the price has basically been going up. There's been a lot of exciting news. I mean, I think last time we talked about under the scenes, Bitcoin's one of those interesting assets where you can kind of see who's buying it. They track wallets that have a lot of Bitcoin. They seem to keep accumulating Bitcoin even when people were scared a few weeks ago and things went down. And now it's all kind of coming to a head, and the sentiment is sort of changing. And one of the big topics was there's a bank in the BNY Mellon is supposedly going to be able to custodian crypto. What custodian means is like so the banks do this with other assets like gold, or if they can hold your asset somewhere in their account, like it's still your money, asset, gold, whatever, but they can hold it, then they can say they feel secure in lending people money against it. So I think it says banks custodian. It opens up two things. One, people can buy it, have some sort of insurance that it's being held safely. They don't have to worry about using it. And two, it ties with the financial institutions where now they can lend against it. They can transfer it for you so that you can use it like credit, where you can buy things against it. So it kind of like it's crypto has this concept that has to be outside the normal financial system, but I think it's kind of moving mainstream into the financial system. That's just going to bring more people in, make adoption faster. I think we talked about, I thought this would happen, within 6 months to 2 years, but it seems to be moving a lot quicker than people expected. So yeah, it's interesting times. It could be a big 6 months to a year coming up for Bitcoin here.
So, when you say that this bank is it's already doing it, or talking about doing it soon?
They're I don't know all the details, but the banks in the US had a restriction where if they wanted to custodian Bitcoin for people, they had to hold an equivalent amount of money in cash. Banks don't like to hold cash. Obviously, they make money by lending money and moving money. So for them being constrained by having to hold a large amount of cash for crypto, made them not want to do it. So it's not that they really couldn't before. It's just that there was this legal constraint around it. So imagine if it was like gold. You hold an ounce of gold, 3,000 bucks Canadian or whatever, a little bit more now, but you'd have to hold $3,000 in cash. And banks would say, well, why would we do that? We're not going to make money keeping cash doing nothing. So it's not the same thing with crypto. But now they're trying to change those rules. So now they have to hold less or very little cash for Bitcoin. The government's kind of said, okay, well, it seems to be stable enough. We'll say that you can hold someone's Bitcoin. And if you have to sell it, the market is liquid enough that you can sell it to without losing a ton of money. Maybe. So they're still working on, I think, details behind the scenes, but um, changing those restrictions on the banks will open up a lot of other financial institutions to start doing this. And then it'll be in the news. Then there'll be this huge, big Bitcoin pump, most likely, as everyone starts to buy from the banks. The banks have to buy from somewhere. So it's going to push the markets up. The more people you have adopting this technology, this concept called Bitcoin, I think the better it is for the whole industry as a whole. Where it goes after that, whether BlackRock corrupts it and there's paper Bitcoin and they manipulate the market, that's a whole nother story. But at least it's going to allow more people to start owning Bitcoin.
Mhm. So originally, when cryptocurrency and Bitcoin came out, the main reason why people liked it was because it was not regulated. It's not part of the system. It's not in the banks. It's
Yep.
not government dealt with and all that kind of stuff. So does this change that mindset? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it favorable or not?
Mm. It does in a way. That Bitcoin kind of born after the 2008 financial crisis, and some people are probably pretty young back then. They don't remember how it went. There was a whole Occupy Wall Street movement, and people were very angry that the banks got bailed out by the government. Basically, they kind of semi created the crisis by poor lending practices. And then they benefited from it because they basically had no consequences. They lost a bunch of money. They were all going under, and the government said huge bailouts. And then all the top executives got huge, big bonuses. Nothing's changed. It's the same thing that's happening today. But people are angry about that for a while. And what people wanted to do was take back the financial system into their own hands. And that's sort of where Bitcoin was born from. That whole idea that people should control their own money and destiny. It can't be manipulated. It can't be printed out of thin air. Those concepts still kind of hold true, and you can do that. But it does come with the downside risk of you can get scammed, you can lose it all, you forget your keys, there's no insurance against it. And so a lot of people can't use it, right? There's a lot of people, you wouldn't want your grandma to take all of her money, put it in Bitcoin, lose her seed keys, and not be able to access her money and have no money, right? That would be a terrible situation. So there is real life use cases where some people need to have some layer of protection and they're willing to pay and give up some return on their money or pay a little fee just to have that insurance. And I think that's totally fair. So not Bitcoin as it originally was thought of, maybe didn't cater to everybody's needs at the time. So this just makes it a little bit better, a little bit easier to use, brings more people in. I think those things are good overall.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before, guess who they're going to be buying the Bitcoins from? It's going to be back to the people who already own it. I find that kind of funny
Exactly.
because I remember when I was getting into gold and silver, and eventually I found this vendor that was selling silver at good prices and whatnot, only to find out that one of the banks was getting their silver from the same vendor. I'm like, huh, I just cut out the whole thing and went directly to the source, which is nice.
Yeah, there
Um,
you go.
I know that the two of you constantly are updated with what's going on and also being involved with other people who's into Bitcoin and crypto and investing. And I know, Chan, you have a group that you join every 2 weeks. Any updates, anything that you could share about those gatherings and what's been talked about?
Yeah, it's interesting because every city has probably a local meetup group that they go to, and ours happens, maybe every couple weeks, every Tuesdays. So I thought I'd show up and say hi to some familiar faces, and a couple guys there, they really helped us get in the space, like really directed us to better education, what to do, and one of um, the education pieces was talking about operation security, OPSEC. So stuff like phishing, stuff like scams, and how to avoid them using 2FAs and properly securing your Bitcoins. Because when we started, it was not too bad and easy to acquire it, but it was just really, really challenging to secure it. And even nowadays, I was talking to another female colleague at the meetup, and she has her own business as well, and she got scammed as well. So it was interesting having that conversation with her, and all the things that she talked about, like emotionally investing in the conversations and how she got scammed was so relevant and just yeah. So it's was interesting to see that as a business owner, she could have gotten scammed too, and she did. And that was just it was the same emotions, like how we felt completely embarrassed, how we were, it affected us, and it wasn't totally life changing, but the lesson there was, hey, we need to kind of still get educated, and this happens all the time, especially in these Telegram messages in groups.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Nice. No, I know a lot of people out there who would like to join groups like this to get involved in crypto and Bitcoin. However, a lot of them feel that they feel out of place. They're too new. They don't know anything about it. They feel like if they go in, they feel that why should they be there? Nobody's going to talk to them. Explain to people what kind of environment it is for people joining these groups. How open it is for newcomers, for people who have all different skill levels or different backgrounds of of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
The in-person meetings, especially our local group, we're in Calgary, and they're very supportive. The people there that show up, they can be really advanced to like very beginner. Like, a lady was there, she didn't even know what spoofing was. And so just kind of get understanding some of those concepts and just sharing, like, real experiences of how people are getting scammed, what to look for, I think it's just really helpful because those stories aren't talked about a lot. Like you're talking about, you know, sometimes when we're talking in like video or segments or conversations, like you want to talk about the best stories. But I think for us, Sheen and I, even in real estate, we want to talk about our challenges, the mistakes, and what to avoid. So people coming into these groups, it's just ask a lot of questions. And we have a saying in our Bitcoin community that, you don't need to trust, just verify. And so verify, verify. Um, get your product first and then send Bitcoin later. Talk to your family, talk to your kids, and just really, really get the information first before rushing into it. There is no rush to send Bitcoin out because once it's sent, you can't reverse it. Um, so yeah, that's what I would say. And even my kids the other day were like, "Mommy, you know, who do we trust? Like, if you say we can't trust anybody, who do we trust?" And it's kind of funny because in the Bitcoin space, maybe Sheen can share like how do we trust anybody? How do we get our product? So
Mhm.
yeah,
I find that quote kind of, or that saying, it's important. Don't trust, but verify. However, why would you verify it unless you trusted them first, kind of thing, right? So, how would you go around that and also verify?
I think it comes back to the whole custodian thing. Like it was the same thing when the internet first came out, in the early 2000s. Everyone's like, well, I don't really want to just send money to somebody, a random person on the internet that I don't see, have never met. How do I know I'll get a product? And then, I guess PayPal is one of the things that came along, and they were the middleman, that custodian in between two groups that couldn't trust each other. Bitcoin, the whole idea of the trust in Bitcoin is that you can send to people, right, addresses, and you can trust that that money gets there without a middleman involved. But there's no guarantee that product comes back when you send your Bitcoin out. So there's going to be some sort of middleman. It will be banks, and there's going to be identifying both parties. The parties don't have to necessarily know each other, but the bank has to know both of them at a level that the bank trusts that when one person sends something to another person, they can trust each other's word that it got there. So that will change that'll bring Bitcoin into the world of finance. I don't think we can operate the way that we do with the Amazons and the buying everything off the internet and not having to go to a store and buy something in person. Um, that won't work unless there's some sort of insurance in between or middleman in between that says, yep, I will trust that you made payment. I will trust that the goods were delivered. I will transact money to both. And if one side comes back and has a complaint, we'll deal with it that way. So this will make the whole transaction process between Bitcoin and the real world a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Now, I know, Chan, you mentioned how you and the other individual share some stories about your experiences. I know lots of people out there are sharing experiences with regards to their successes, all the great stuff, and they're boasting about how much success they're getting, how much money they're getting in return. What we rarely hear about are those the not so great stories, the scams and the embarrassment and all that kind of stuff. Why do you think it's so important for those stories to be shared as well? Not only the good stuff, but the bad stuff. And how does that make people more comfortable about dealing with crypto and Bitcoin?
yeah, good question. It's new technology. It's a new process. This is a new environment, and I'm not afraid to share them. And I think it just opens up more conversation for people to share. Because the people watching this, maybe they can relate. Maybe it can help them avoid the same mistakes or ask the questions. And even asking the same questions, maybe 8 different ways, 8 different times. And that is something that we need to practice, is just learning to ask better questions and going back to how my kids ask these questions. And sometimes, I had this conversation, I believe, with Sheen and another colleague about we live in a fiat thinking world, meaning we are really trusting human beings. We trust what they say. We don't have anything to not trust them. So it plays into our psychology, and I kind of say that's the fiat thinking finance system. But in a way, this is a whole new shift of thinking where we should not trust. We do need to verify everything and actually say, hey, think of the worst. Think of as if we are being scammed. And so it's a different, like I'm still trying to process that. So if you can imagine that. And I think it's even hard to teach our kids not to trust because they're very trusting people.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just sharing stories and really getting on conversation and documenting that. And I feel like there's going to be 1,000 more documentaries made from these stories that's going to be released. So I credit you, Fong, for even sharing this because it's still pretty scary to talk about.
Well, awesome. Thank you very much for that. When it comes to the next, in the short term here, what are you foreseeing, Sheen? Are people expecting things to go up because of this recent announcement, or are people gonna kind of sit back a little bit?
Yeah. Um, it's an interesting time. I mean, the stock market's at an all-time high. Bitcoin's going up, gold's going up. No one really knows for sure. It feels like a recession should be happening, but none of the markets are showing that. So I think people are very confused as to which way things are going to go and why things are happening. So I think what's interesting is behind the scenes. I think this is in the news. Warren Buffett is selling a lot of his stock in different banks. People like Elon Musk have sold a lot of shares. Jeff Bezos is selling stuff. So people are trying to sell. So the big players have to sell at a time when there's lots of buyers. Obviously, they can't sell when everyone's scared and no one's buying. So they sell when people are buying. It's a time of greed, but no one knows for sure if it's going to keep going up or if there's going to be a correction. And so, depending on which source you want to do, there's always a fact point or some sort of data that would indicate it's going to go down, and there's also some facts that indicate it's going to go up. So it just kind of depends who you're going to listen to. Nobody knows at the end of the day. I think that's what it comes down to. So what I look for, if we call it the fundamentals of Bitcoin, is this technology going to continue to be adopted? Are people continuing to use it? Is the network continuing to grow? Are more people getting into that space? I think those are all good signs for the long term. But in the short term, like a year from now, 6 months from now, it's hard to say where the price is going to be. It seems to be trending in an up direction, so you kind of just got to go with the flow. The trend is your friend, as they say. And I think, people think it's the 4-year cycle where every 4 years Bitcoin happens to go up. But there's other factors at play. It's not just that, Bitcoin has a halving and everything has to go up. It has to do with liquidity in the market, how much money the government is printing and creating, who's buying what, like where's money being moved from. Is money coming out of the stock market? Is money coming out of bonds into the stock market? Or is money coming out of bonds into gold or Bitcoin? There's so many different factors at play. And if the overall sentiment for people think, hey, Bitcoin is a good thing, and that's sort of what BlackRock has been promoting. You can have your own opinions of whether BlackRock is a good or a bad entity, but their whole purpose is basically to make a lot of money and control the market so that they win. That's capitalism, I guess, at its finest. So if they are becoming very pro Bitcoin and their whole sentiment is trending towards promoting Bitcoin to everyday people and pushing it, I think that flow is saying Bitcoin go up. At the end of the day, you can't fight the big guys. If you had 1,000 Bitcoin, you have nothing compared to what these guys can do in terms of moving money around. So when they want something to go in their direction, they will make it go in that direction. So if you look at who's buying, the big players are buying, go with the flow. That's all I can say.
Awesome. So it still sounds like it's a good thing to jump into. I know lots of people are still wary about getting in, getting out, whatever it is. I still go with the model of okay, put in X amount of dollars every month, keep that consistent, kind of set it in, forget about it, and then just see what happens later. I've been doing that with gold and silver for a long period of time. We've been doing it with stocks for a period of time. We'll be doing it with crypto for a period of time as well. So I think that it's one of those things that is fairly fairly risk adverse and something that you'll start learning more about what you're invested in because you're already invested in. It was
Mhm.
funny. I recently had a conversation with someone who's very, very successful in the stocks, and he mentioned that one of his advices to his kids was that if you just put $200 a month into a certain stock, by the time you're 65, you'll have millions. And I'm like, wow, that's such an easy concept to grasp. Yes, it's not exciting. It doesn't go up and down, and you're not yelling and
Mhm.
screaming and selling and buying on a consistent basis. It's very consistent, very calm, very patient. Do you agree with the sentiment of being very patient with crypto and Bitcoin?
Yes, definitely. So, I mean, what we're talking about, the Bitcoin, the long-term strategy, I think people feel like they've missed the boat because they see other people, that bought Bitcoin early on, had a bunch of it, made a bunch of money off of it. They feel like, well, that may not happen again. And that may be true, but it's the same thing as any investment. You don't expect the S&P to go up 900%
Mm.
in the next 3 weeks. But, over the next, 20, 30 years, whatever your time horizon is before you need to retire and take that money out, it's definitely possible. Um, uh, Bitcoin and crypto, we need to kind of separate those two things because a lot of people treat cryptocurrencies as like a scratch lottery ticket. Like you throw a little bit of money at it, you wait a little while, and then hopefully it goes up. And there's no real, most of the cryptocurrencies out there, there's no real purpose or need or desire for, right? They're all just ways of gambling in a market that's new and exciting, and that's where a lot of people talk about their wins. And you say, oh, you just go buy any coin, you go buy Fluffy Kitten coin, and it goes up 900%, and you've made your tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars overnight, kind of thing. That's not common. Most people who put money into those things lose it all. You hear about the wins because no one talks about the losses, right? Like we were just saying, no one wants to talk about the bad things that happen. People just assume that it's all good and green and everything goes up. That's not the way it works. Usually, someone in those cases is winning, and majority of people are losing.
Well, if somebody's winning, somebody must be losing as well. So, when
Yeah.
we're talking about patience and long-term gratification, that's not something that's easy when it comes to teaching kids. Chan, you're somebody who's been able to educate your kids into investing in crypto and Bitcoin. How do you explain to them that, yeah, it's not something you could cash in right away. You're gonna have to wait for it. You have to be patient. How do you get that into their heads? Because I know, like my kids, they're like, now, now, now. So how do you teach them delayed gratification?
Oh man, it goes down, it comes down to the marshmallow test, like the patience, the not seeing the next shiny thing and not running to it. It is being patient. It is a boring type of game, but it's teaching them resilience, teaching them, failing forward and learning through those mistakes. But it's a patience game. And with our kids, I have to say, like, they're not entitled. When we pass, our kids aren't getting much. They're going to learn how to make money their own way. They're going to learn how to survive. They're going to learn how to make their own mistakes and be resilient and get rejected and keep going and persevere. So it's just doing that. And right now, you can call it funny money. It's okay to lose a little bit. Just learn through the process. And so that's what we teach our kids, whether it's doing stuff around the house. And, the A type in me is just like, even if we're putting dishes away, it's like in my mind, I'm like, oh no, they're not doing it right. Sometimes we want to correct it. Sometimes we want to do it for them. But, you have your partner and Sheen's like, just let them do it. Let them make the mistakes. It's okay. So, it's a test for the adults. So
Let them do
yeah.
it. I don't like that dish anyways. Let them break. I've been waiting to get rid of that dish for a long time.
Yeah. Well, people learn from mistakes, right? You don't, when everything goes well and then you win, you don't really learn as much as when you lose and you take that emotional loss to heart. That's where you really get those lessons in life. So unless it's hard in the market, if people are just getting into crypto, it's going to be an emotional roller coaster, right? Everything goes up and you think you're winning, and then most people, don't take their wins because they want the greed of it to keep going up, and then it goes back down, and then they get angry, and so people will buy at the top and sell the bottom in every single market forever. until they are able to control the emotional aspect of it and realize that you can't make emotional decisions. That's why the whole DCA dollar cost average strategy works because it takes the emotion out of it.
Mhm.
And emotions and finances don't go well together that way. And so I think the kids have to feel it. So if they feel the win and they can enjoy the wins, that's good. So you got to take a little bit of celebration time. So when their investments pay off, and when they loses, you have to like discuss it with them and say, you felt like this didn't work out in your favor. Why was that? What did you learn from it? And can you clean up your mess and move on? And that just applies to everything in life.
hmm Very, very true. I find it funny that when Chen talked about the marshmallow test, two tests come into my mind. One is the one where you go, okay, you get one marshmallow now, and then if you wait a little longer, you get the second one, and if you wait a little longer, that teaches the patience and the delayed gratification of it. There was another marshmallow test I've seen where the kid was sitting in the middle, and the parents poured a whole bunch of marshmallows down, and once they poured a whole bunch of marshmallows down, both parents went in and just took everything and ate it all, kind of thing, right? The kid goes, "Oh, there's no more left," and that teaches you you have to take action, or else it's all gone. So,
Mm.
marshmallow tests for everybody. There's always a great test for different aspects of life. So, any final words from the two of you?
This is the time. This is make it a goal to dollar cost average and save and hold on to your Bitcoins. And, that's another podcast that we could talk about, but we have a great reason why we need to do this today and why I feel like this is an urgent and crucial time to get in. This is the best time to be alive to do this for our next generation. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Sheena?
that's good. I think, we've done these podcasts. I have had people come up to us and say, I saw you were doing a podcast. They listened to a little bit of it. Hopefully, at some point, they are willing to come to us and ask questions. And, both Chad and I are definitely open to helping and answering questions wherever we can. So hopefully it sparks some people to start the conversation. Even if it's not with us, talk to somebody about it. Just start learning. And I think that's the new world. There's tons of information out there. Take people's opinions and implement something in your life. Make some changes. Small changes can make a big difference over a long time. So just try and learn. I don't think it's not as scary as people make it out to be. That's for sure. So hopefully it sparks some people to inspire some people to take action.
Awesome. Very, very true. I have a quick little story. I have one of my clients came up to me and he goes, "Oh, I'm just looking at different ways of investing and different options and different opportunities." And I go, "Oh, have you thought about investing in crypto and Bitcoin?" He goes, "No, no, no, that doesn't work." I'm like, "Well, why not?" He goes, my buddy says it doesn't work." I'm like, "So what happened to your buddy?" "Well, he lost lots of money into it." I'm like, "Then why are you asking him questions?" You need to reach out to people who's successful on it and is doing a good job with managing their crypto and their Bitcoin. He goes, "But I don't know anyone." I'm like, "You could have just asked me, because if you ask me, I can connect you with other people." So the thing is, if you want to do something, if you want to try something out, reach out to people who's doing it currently and are doing it well. Yes, there might be some ups and downs in their process and in their journey, but overall, they're doing well in it, and those are the people that you ask. So if anybody wants to learn more about crypto, Bitcoin, how to get into it, how to get emotionally a little bit more calm when it comes to investing in Bitcoin, reach out to Sheen and Chan. Obviously, we've been chatting about this for a few weeks now, and they've been sharing a lot of their experiences. So great people to connect with. So yeah, thank you for joining in, and until next time. When you are Bitcoining, you are shaping tomorrow's economy. We'll see you later.
Thanks, Val.